Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to be talking about taking B on cash on the T side. And this is actually from popular request, really. A lot of people have asked for me to go over videos on taking a spot on the T side. Now, I do have that entry frag roots video where I kind of go over this type of thing, where I show you exactly how I would go to somewhere. And I'll just kind of go over that a little bit more in depth in this video. So this will mostly be for solo queue here. Now, for this type of entry frag route, this is going to be basically exactly what I do in a game, and I'll go pretty in depth in why I do it. So the first thing I do is I throw that quick jump flash right there. You aim at the bottom right of the store and jump throw as you get to the corner. And what that does is it's going to land fairly low if you throw it correctly, blind everybody around heaven, blind everybody in here, and with that flash you can try and catch this opper that's going to be sitting over in here. Now, the only thing you have to worry about is as you come around this corner, you want to pop out as soon as the flash goes off. You can get unlucky where he kind of just lines up and finds that frag. You have to recognize that that's something that might happen. However, you're going to get much more benefit going with this peek than delaying for a second, as if you go with this peek and he's over here, takes the shot, then you can quickly chase him around and find the kill before he can fall back. However, if you wait for the shot and then you come around, a lot of the time he'll actually beat you to his spot and you won't be in a position to get that frag on him. Now, after doing that, the second thing I would really recommend is kind of playing it based on your opponent. For me, most teams will be throwing a smoke right here. The best thing about this, though, is that most teams, when they throw that, will actually have a gap on the outside. So, combined with that flash, a lot of the time in pugs, I'll just kind of pug straight through this smoke looking for that entry frag, because a lot of the time, actually, this turns into a bit of a one-way smoke if they throw it in correctly. You can kind of catch them where they can't even see you at all, and you can one-way smoke them. Or you kind of sit on top of this box right next to the smoke, and they can't see you at all, and you catch someone looking through this doorway here, again, completely unaware. However, you'll have to figure this out on your own, based on whether their team is really paying attention to that smoke, if they're nading through it and whatnot. However, most of the time I'll find that early on in a half I'll try and actually push through that just to check if a team is comfortable holding that, and then later on I'll stop pushing through it if they are, or even if they aren't comfortable holding that, if they've caught me once or twice. Just this is a way to kind of feel out the opponent in this pug. Now, the next thing I'll do most of the time is I'll throw a Molotov in there to allow me to clear the rest of the site. Now, the reason I do that is specifically to clear out this corner here and to prevent someone from coming from over here and peeking straight out and trying to kill me. That'll stop that from happening. Now, of course, that's kind of a risk you take anyways, because he could still do that. However, I try and delay that a little bit, and later on in the half, of course, I'll have an idea of whether or not they like to do that, so I'll figure how to deal with that a little bit later. The next thing I'll do, peek right out here and clear this opper in CT spawn, because I've mentioned it multiple times before. Oppers in CT spawn here actually generally will be holding an angle quite like this, and to flick up you'll actually always get the first shot off. So if you pre-aim this correctly and you pre-aim it well, you'll find that you'll almost always kill this player in that CT spawn, or at least give him quite a bit of damage and put him in a scenario where he oftentimes will end up just legging you or even missing you, and you can post up on him for the repeak and kind of catch him off guard. Now, after that, if nobody's there, this is an angle you should be 100% comfortable with peeking, because there might be a player here. However, this is incredibly uncommon. There most likely is going to be a player right here with the sign kind of right on the right side of his screen. And this is actually a really bad angle for you to play if you're on that counter-terrorist side, because the terrorists will actually have quite an advantage as they strafe across here. They'll be pre-aiming you most of the time. Even if they're not, it's a pretty easy flick. They'll have that peeker's advantage, and as a counter-terrorist, there's very little you can actually do here from this spot, because there are so many angles they can peek from. What you might want to be doing if you are on that CT side is kind of crouching down and then crouching up to try and catch this terrorist, who might do this sort of play where they peek towards that and then start to move over, and you catch them as they're starting to move over. Or even if you don't catch them, even if they're still looking right at you, it's still harder for them to react as you uncrouch because of peeker's advantage. So it's actually much better to play it like that. However, as a terrorist, very few counter-terrorists at lower level, especially in pugs and matchmaking, as I said before, even at higher level in those, generally don't play it correctly, and so they don't play in this way. So it's actually just pretty much an easy kill most of the time. The next thing I'll do, come right over here and peek this box like this. It's actually quite a common spot for oppers to play, and it's another opper spot where if you peek it like I just showed, you'll actually get the first shot off, 9 out of 10 times, and you'll be able to get that kill because they almost always peek this exact same angle right here, just over this box like this, or maybe a little bit further back, something like that, where they're looking for the frag and then to fall back. And by peeking them in such a way, you're actually going to find yourself getting that kill on that opper more often than you get picked. And actually, by peeking it kind of like that, you're actually pretty much not going to get killed by a guy playing this angle. You might get spotted by a guy playing this angle, I'm not 100% sure, but you actually kind of mitigate the fact that you could get shot in the back here by kind of peeking it in this weird way, and then you spin around and clear out this, and all of a sudden you're in checkers, and most likely actually at this point you've found a kill. However, if you haven't, I normally will smoke off into vents, or if I still have my molly, I'll molly it. Sometimes I'll do some other things. However, once I get into checkers, I start telling my team to kind of come over to B, and we can start making our way into B because there's so few areas that their team can actually be at, and the most common of which is either going to be on this side of the box or on this side of the box. This general rule is that counter terrorist that's not peeking from any of the normal angles is most likely going to be around this box or maybe hiding back there. So actually what I'll kind of do is just quick peek this a little bit, but for the most part I'll just tell my team to come over and we'll try and make it happen. Sometimes I might quick peek it, make an opper take a shot, and then nade it or Molotov it, something like that. It all can work. Really just depends on how you want to play it. Now, as I said though, most of the time you'll be finding a frag early on in that round and finding a frag around here. And so what you want to be doing is, if you get a frag or two frags and you know B is clear, I would recommend actually considering pushing CT spawn. Now this isn't actually a great play in a scrim or in a match, this is a straight up pug play. However, in pugs, again, people will be running straight through here with their knives out, and you'll find yourself getting a very large amount of kills. Now, this is, of course, like I said, very risky play, and you have to do it if you get these two entry frags immediately and then just run straight over here so you catch that player off guard. Otherwise, what you want to do optimally is stay the hell out of the bomb site, because a lot of people tend to crowd inside of the bomb site, and you don't want to do that. Optimally, you have one player in the bomb site, he plants right here for B main, and everybody else is kind of maybe tarp, checkers, or B main outside of the bomb site, which is the easiest place for counter-terrorists to really kind of deal with you. Now, if you do get stuck in the bomb site, there are a few things you can do. You can actually kind of Molotov or smoke off heaven from anywhere in sight just by aiming at the middle of that crack right there, and that smoke will bounce off and it'll land right there as well. And there's quite a few other things you can do from inside of sight. It's just not an advantageous angle for you to be in. So I would highly recommend kind of falling back, or you can actually do something a little bit like this. I've done it once or twice, is you put down that smoke and you kind of play right behind it on the edge, find a frag, and immediately fall back. Again, really risky play. However, it can work wonders in pugs, especially if your team is having troubles in those after plants. You're kind of getting picked apart, and your teammates can't really hold even in, a 3-on-3 or a 4-on-3. So you want to try and give yourself even more of an advantage, especially if your team got picked off early on the other side of the map. So it's just something to kind of consider. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.